Okay, so we're recording. So good afternoon. We're here today with Michael McNaughton, who's the CEO and founder of RVezy, Canada's largest RV rental marketplace. So thanks for joining us today, Michael, on this second COVID Coffee Reimagined with the support from Invest Ottawa friends. How are you doing today?
Excellent. I'm doing great. Thanks for having me today.
I appreciate your time. And obviously, Lindsay, a usual face that joins us for these COVID coffees. And today I'm actually coming from my daughter's office. The rest of our office space was fully booked. So the joys of work from home, Michael. So so before we kind of get into the discussion, just tell us a little bit more about RVezy. Right? Give us a bit of a history of your company from start to where you are now, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of going way back, kind of the founder story, how this all got started is I've always been very entrepreneurial, love business, love finding new ways of making things easier. And, all through my career, I've had construction companies, I've had fence and deck companies, landscaping, I own a number of rental properties. And it was about 5-6 years ago, I happened to buy a motorhome for myself and my family. And so we had it, we went on a couple trips, loved it. But then of course, now you find this motorhome sitting in the driveway. The kids are too busy with their summer sports and off at camp, and you just can't find that time to get away. So I thought maybe there's an opportunity to rent this out and make a bit of money. Started, putting it on the classified sites, renting it out, was doing really, really well. I was making about $15,000 a season on something that cost $16,000 to buy. So saw a huge opportunity.
Wow.
At the time, I was finishing up a university degree. I was a police officer here in Ottawa, where I had a 12-year career there. A whole bunch of other things on the plate. Married, 3 kids. There was no time to kind of explore anything further.
Totally.
Unfortunately, back in April of 2016, in my role as a police officer, I ended up getting involved in a bit of an altercation, making an arrest, and as a result, ended up rupturing the bicep in my arm. So the tendon ripped right off the bone during this altercation. And they talk about startups and everything. Timing is everything, and it kind of just feels like the stars aligned as a result of this really unfortunate event. Happened back in April of 2016. I was just finishing my 11-year university degree that finally got completed. So now I went from this really, really packed schedule, no time available, to suddenly I'm off work. I have my full salary. I'm recovering, and had this idea brewing for a while of, why can't other people do what I'm doing? And how do we bring this all together collectively to have a secure platform where people have insurance, where roadside assistance is provided, where people feel much safer in that transaction. Because looking at what I was doing, the police officer in me started looking at people sending me thousands and thousands of dollars with never even meeting me. And I just thought that there needs to be something a little more secure for everybody to do this. So that was really how RVezy started, and, kind of leveraging a bit of that recovery time and got it out the door really quickly. And so that's back in 2016. And now 4 years later, we're all across Canada. We appeared on Dragon's Den back in 2017. We've recently launched into the American market. We've completed over 40,000 individual rentals. So things are really, really taking off. And now we have a team of over 50 employees. So it's been a pretty exciting journey. And and yes, I have left my policing career behind. I had to make that difficult choice of kind of changing careers, but I'm loving what I'm doing.
That's a really cool story. How you've obviously gone from one end of the spectrum to being an entrepreneur, and kudos to you. So I guess RVezy, then, would you describe yourself as kind of like the Airbnb for the recreational vehicle industry? Is that exactly how you kind of foresee it, kind of globally? Yeah,
they're very fortunate to have giants like Airbnb kind of pave that path. That's a really easy way of describing it. It's the Airbnb of RV rentals. So it's local owners of recreational vehicles. So that means, whether it's a motorhome, a travel trailer, or anything in between, giving them the opportunity to connect with somebody looking to travel and rent it out with full insurance coverage, with all the booking support, payment processing, everything to make that an enjoyable experience for both the renter and owner.
So if Lindsay and I wanted to get away on a corporate retreat next year, how would we go? If we book through RVezy, I guess your clients, they would literally deliver the vehicle to wherever we're scheduled to be, and it'd be ready, set up for us, ready to go. And then at the end, they would just literally just pick it up, and that's as easy as it gets.
So that's one of the things I love about our business model is, you know, we didn't invent the idea of renting an RV, right? That's been done for a long, long time. But the way it's traditionally been structured is these RV rental sites. So in major city centers, they're going to have an option of one of 3 different types of motorhomes that you can rent. You pick it up, there's nothing comes included. And that's about it. It caters very much to a European traveler. What's really unique about what we do is that our inventory, like all of our RV owners, are located all across North America. So you don't have to go to downtown Toronto and pick up an RV to go on your trip. Maybe you can pick it up closer to your final destination. And you talked about delivery, and that's something that we've really, really tried to encourage people to try out, is that if you don't feel comfortable driving a large vehicle, if you don't have a vehicle that can tow a travel trailer, well, you're not prohibited from trying the RV world. You can find a local campsite, campground, a provincial park, a national park, whatever it may be, connect with somebody that lives locally, that lives close to there, and they're more than happy to drop off the trailer, set it up for you, and then pick it up when you're done with it. So it's a really interesting way of trying out the RV industry, of going camping, get outdoors, exploring your own backyard without having to have that stress of towing a large trailer or driving a motorhome.
That's awesome.
And you just stumbled across a good idea for next summer, Ollie.
and there's some incredible campgrounds out there, and like if you haven't been involved in the industry and don't really know what's this camping all about, there are some incredible places. You know, I often pitch this one that I came across, and I think it's such a cool idea, is that there's an RV resort in Quebec where it is literally a mock-up of Cuba. It feels like you're going to an all-inclusive resort in Cuba. They have the palm trees, the swim-up bar, the nightly entertainment, but you're staying in your RV. So it's just like a really, really unique experience that you're not going to find elsewhere, and that is only available kind of to the RV enthusiast.
Right.
That's really cool.
Speaking of unique experiences, so somewhere along the way, then you got hooked up with Invest Ottawa and their Accelerator program. Why don't you tell us just real quick about your experience and how that went?
Yeah, so again, I came from a policing background, right? So, you know, from a young age, I spent 12 years as a police officer, both in Edmonton and then coming to Ottawa, and had never really been part of that entrepreneurial community or the startup community. So it was all brand new for both my partner and I. So hooking up and getting involved in Invest Ottawa just gave us access to all the resources and the mentors and the guidance that we kind of need in those early stages to know, are we doing things right? Right? It gives you just a lot of that comparison and learning from people that have been there and done that and try not to make the same mistakes that they made. So it's been a very, very valuable resource for us, you know, often in the doors, available for phone calls, and really just going through that accelerator program and understanding, you know, what does our path look like? Are we on the right way? How do you raise money? You know, how do you pitch to investors? How do you kind of justify your business model? So it's been quite the journey. The learning curve is incredibly steep, and it's been a great experience.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, Oliver and I often hear just the same thing, praise for the support and the access to resources that companies like yours have in the early days, right? So do you stick with Invest Ottawa now and graduate to the Accelerator program, or what's next in that regard?
So that's occurred very recently, the graduation from the Accelerator program. So kind of going through the next steps, what's next with Invest Ottawa. We are part of a scale-up program through the Lazarides Institute as well. And again, what's so great about these programs is just the access to the mentors, right? It's not just for the founders of the business, but now we can involve our business unit leaders, our marketers, like everyone within the company. That's been our goal, is let's provide them with the resources, right? They're the ones today with the product. They're the expertise in the areas. let's get them and kind of develop them as leaders and as, ambassadors of our product. Is how do we let everybody learn at the same time? So like, big advocate of it, love the mentorship, love the talks. It's really, really helpful.
Oh, that's great.
And has it been,
sorry, Nancy.
I was just this wasn't something that we had really thought of talking about, but like during COVID, has the experience still been good? Like I get the sense that they've adjusted well to this. Like obviously you're not physically in the space as much as you normally would be, but so you still have access to everything remotely, Zoom, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, it's been, the entire world shifted when COVID hit, and moving towards these Zoom calls and Google Hangouts. You can still access the resources. We can still have these talks like we're having right now. It took a little bit of adapting to kind of understand how that's going to work. But no, I don't think there's been any large challenges kind of imposed by that. Yeah,
great. Sorry, Alia.
That's all right. Well, I mean, you reminded us of COVID, so thank you for that. This close to Christmas, but on that topic, basically. So when back in March COVID did hit, what kind of impact did that have on RVezy, and how have you been navigating your company through the past nine months or so? Just give us a little snapshot.
Yeah, like everyone else in the world, an incredible shock to the business. Right, it was just full of uncertainty and unknowns. It's nothing anyone's ever faced. And kind of the way that our business model works is we kind of have a couple seasonalities. Obviously in our Canadian climate, generally our travelers travel between May and October, right? That's the typical travel season. But like most people out there, we tend to book and plan our vacations well in advance. So when March hit, that was kind of in the peak of our pre-booking season. Everyone's making their arrangements, they're booking their summer vacations. And as soon as COVID hit, suddenly that completely stopped, right? So now there's absolutely no revenue coming into the business. And everyone that did book in the past 3 to 6 months were canceling their vacations. So it's a real challenge for the business to kind of understand, okay, this is a big shock of this pandemic. What does the future look like? A lot of daily meetings talking about cash flow and what's happening in the industry, what's happening across the world and Canada, across provinces. We quickly kind of adapted it and pivoted a bit. Myself having a policing background, my partner having a military background. We like planning, we see emergency, and we kind of like that type of stuff.
So what we did is right? Yeah.
We really do, right? It's just something that's
it's automatic in nature, really, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. And so what we did is we said, well, wait a minute, we have 5,000 plus RVs located all across the country. Big worries about the frontline personnel battling COVID and hospital capacity. And so what we did is we contacted all of our owners, and like their responses were amazing, and just asked them if they'd be willing to kind of bring their RVs and make them available for frontline personnel. So we had hundreds of RVs go out the door for doctors, nurses, police officers, firefighters that were out there on the front lines, but needed somewhere to kind of self-isolate. So RVs were just perfectly suited for that. They can be moved and transported anywhere and can accommodate people so they can stay at their home, but still isolate, if that makes sense. So
from their family members. Yeah.
So that was a big focus kind of in the March, April, May timeframe. And then, we were extremely fortunate because we see a lot of small businesses and tech startups just having a lot of difficulties given the pandemic. And we were just fortunate enough that RV travel was well suited for the pandemic. People still wanted to travel. They want to travel safely. So they may not be traveling and flying to Italy or Greece or going down south, but they want to explore their own backyard. So this RV travel ended up being a really big hit this summer, where people could isolate as much as they want, be as remote as they want, and they're self-contained in their own RV. So we were very fortunate come mid-May that we started to see provincial parks and private parks start to loosen restrictions and starting to allow reservations to be made, and then our bookings went through the roof this summer.
That's fantastic, and that's a phenomenal idea to open up the RV idea for our frontline workers. So again, I mean, kudos to you guys. And I think when we last chatted, you had mentioned that you were, from an office perspective, from a facility perspective, RVezy was looking at potentially expanding, just given the run rate of the business. So when COVID hit, what happened to those expansion plans from an office perspective?
Yeah, we were very, very close to, within days of signing a new lease, and essentially had to put everything on hold because of this uncertainty and unknowns. And now I think we will be going that route, but now it's kind of navigating what is the new norm. I don't like using that term, but it's not even the new norm, or what are some possibilities for the business? Can we have more remote workers? How do we do check-ins? How much do we value the in-person office space? So it's really just taking the time to reevaluate what are the needs of the business and how are we going to structure this moving forward. Because looking at the past, I guess call it 9, things have worked fairly well. We're fortunate enough that we had kind of 3 different offices within the same building. So those people that do need to come into an office space are able to do it safely. But managing and having the remote workers has actually worked out quite well. So I guess it's really what's going to work best for our employees and the business moving forward, and just evaluating what does this new office going to look like.
Yeah. And thinking out loud, there's no reason to think that next year will be any different, like from an RV usage point of view. It should be a repeat for you, I think, next summer.
Yeah, and we're seeing that. Like, that was kind of one of the questions that we had is, okay, now going into next year, are we going to see the same booking seasonality? Are people still going to book their vacations far in advance? Are they going to have the same planning patterns as they did previously? So far, it looks like, yes, people are still planning on traveling in 2021. But what I just love about our business model is, the economy's taken a big hit. People have lost their jobs. People have lost their income. Well, we're also providing the opportunity for people to generate a new revenue source, right? So the money's not going to these large corporations or into one corporate pocketbook. It's going to the everyday Canadians in these small rural cities that own these RVs. So like that's been incredible. This year we've put $20 million back into the economy, into the pockets of these everyday Canadians. So like that's, again, what I love about the sharing economy is it's going back to the everyday people.
Yeah. And that's a good point. And that would normally be money that they might spend in Europe or in the States or wherever. That's cool. For sure.
And that doesn't even count the economic impact of the RV travel. On average, there's about $200 a day spent by a family. That money is not being spent in the big city cores. This is going to the small rural communities, the private campgrounds, the chip truck on the side of the road. It's going to local travel. And I think that's going to be a trend that we're going to continue to see for a number of years, is discovering your own backyard. Because I think a lot of us, me included, have kind of neglected that. Like, we live in a huge, beautiful, diverse country that we often neglect and travel outside. Right? Yeah. There's so much to kind of discover and explore within 2 hours of where you live.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, no, that's I didn't think about how you described, obviously, the benefit, the money basically going back into Canadians' pockets, and the spin-off effects of obviously them spending as they go throughout Canada. That's unbelievable. But before you finish 2020 though, so here's a question that my wife had asked me, because we just bought ski passes this year, right? And with lodges, with the uncertainty around lodges, can RV users, because she mentioned it, like, what about renting an RV for a weekend to have our kids kind of come in and put our boots on and kind of, use the bathroom? Is that something that some of your RV clients are kind of hoping or expecting perhaps? Is that another source of revenue this year?
You can use an RV in the wintertime, definitely much more challenging. There's just simply limitations of what an RV is capable of doing. Access to fresh water is kind of one of them. Right. When it's minus 20 outside, you're not going to be having water access in your RV, which now limits the bathroom use and all these other things. Using it as a warm changing area, absolutely possible, but definitely much more challenging.
Yeah, I was just a thought before we kind of wrap up that how we're going to keep our kids, I guess, wine free when it's minus 35, wine being like moaning, not drinking the wine, which I would be doing when they're moaning, right? So, well,
yeah, it's been an incredible challenge, I think, you know, for businesses and families, just trying to navigate how do you keep your young ones busy? How do you keep everybody safe and still kind of live the life that you want to live, given that we're in a pandemic?
Yeah, well, I know. I mean, I'm certainly more enthusiastic about exploring the rest of Canada, which I haven't even scratched the surface yet. So I'm hoping to have the ability at some point next year to kind of leverage your site and some of your clients. So thank you again, Mike. It's been fantastic spending some time with you. I know that Lindsay and I are always thrilled to meet with CEOs like yourself and thought leaders. And I want to thank you for your service, for your years in the police service. Thank you for your service for that. And I want to wish you and RVezy all the very best, and we look forward to following the success story as you continue to grow into 21. So happy holidays, Mike, and we look forward to staying in touch.
Excellent. Thank you very much for having me, guys. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, take care, Mike. All the best.